while barring those institutions from revealing their disclosures. ACLU staff attorney Melissa Goodman said, quote, "The gag power has allowed the FBI to manipulate the debate to suppress evidence of its misuse of the NSL power and to deprive Congress and the public of important information it needs to inform whether these intrusive surveillance and gag powers should be reformed." In Israel and the occupied territories, the Israeli government has agreed to free 20 Palestinian women in exchange for information on the captured Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit. In return for the prisoner's release, Hamas is expected to release a video showing Shalit is still alive. The Israeli government, meanwhile, is reportedly considering establishing an inquiry on UN allegations it committed war crimes in the assault on the Gaza Strip earlier this year. It's unclear if the proposal under consideration would probe the allegations or focus on how to deal with avoiding prosecution under international law. An Israeli cabinet minister has proposed establishing a commission to assess the UN inquiry's judicial ramifications. On Wednesday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denounced the UN report, saying those who take it seriously, quote, oppose peace.
Those who support the Goldstone report, oppose peace, because there's not a government in sight, and there's not a citizen, not a consensus. There won't be an Israeli public that will say, let us take additional risk for peace, because whatever happens, we'll have the right of self-defense. This report is a blow to peace because it says that Israel cannot defend itself.
Netanyahu's comments come as the head of the inquiry, Judge Richard Goldstone, continues to defend the report's findings. In an interview on CNN, Goldstone said he believes Israel intentionally targeted Palestinian civilians in the Gaza assault. In other Gaza news, Israel's reportedly agreed to allow the reconstruction of a Palestinian hospital destroyed during the assault. The Agence France-Presse reports Israel will allow in materials to rebuild the Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City. The Israeli government reportedly made the decision as a gesture to the French government for its confrontational stance on Iran's nuclear program. In other news, a 17-year-old Palestinian teenager was killed Wednesday when he was struck by an Israeli army jeep. Palestinians say the teen was deliberately run over. In Afghanistan, the United Nations has dismissed a senior U.S. diplomat in a spat over Afghans' disputed elections. Peter Galbraith was let go as deputy to UN Special Envoy Qaid after vocally criticizing alleged voter fraud by supporters of Afghan President Hamid Karzai. In Italy, prosecutors have rested their case in the trial over the CIA kidnapping of the Egyptian cleric Abu Ammar. 26 Americans are being tried in absentia, along with several former Italian intelligence officials. Omar was seized on the streets of Milan in 2003 by more than a score of CIA agents and taken to U.S. bases in Italy and Germany before being sent to Egypt. He says he was tortured there during a 4-year imprisonment. Prosecutors are seeking sentences of up to 13 years in prison. Back in the United States, a group of Democratic lawmakers is calling for expanding medical coverage to undocumented immigrants under health care reform. In a letter to Democratic leaders, 22 Congress members say they oppose plans to bar undocumented immigrants from purchasing insurance. The letter says, quote, "It's not rational to exclude individuals who are willing and able to share in the responsibility of paying into the system." In Montana, a little-known private firm has taken control of an unused jail in the rural town of Hardin. Last week, executives of the company American Police Force arrived in SUVs bearing the logo of a local police department that's never existed. Local officials say they've signed a deal with APF, but no agreement has been validated. Company officials say they intend to hire some 200 employees. In addition to running a jail, company officials say they intend to use the facility as a military and law enforcement training center. For its first local hire, APF has hired a Montana reporter who's been covering the prison as its spokesperson. The Treasury Department has launched its long-awaited program to purchase toxic assets from troubled financial firms. Government officials say the effort could expand to around $40 billion, a fraction of initial projections. Financial companies have been reluctant to sell off mortgage-based securities at low prices based on predictions they could end up becoming profitable. In other business news, Bank of America CEO Ken Lewis has announced plans to step down at the end of the year. Lewis came under wide criticism for seeking billions of dollars in additional government bailout money to purchase Merrill Lynch, even as the firm authorized $1 million employee bonuses. The Supreme Court has decided to rule on whether state and local handgun laws violate the Second Amendment right to gun ownership it recognized last year. The 2008 decision struck down a handgun ban in Washington, D.C. Justices will now decide whether handgun rights also extend beyond federal districts to the state and local level. The news comes as a new study found gun possession greatly increases the odds of being shot during an armed assault. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine found people with a gun were 4 times more likely to be shot by assailants than those without a gun. In Vermont, 4 women elders were arrested earlier this week after blocking entry to a nuclear plant in the town of Vernon. The 4 members of Vermont Yankee Shut It Down affinity group entered the plant housing the Vermont Yankee reactor and sat down on folding chairs. The group includes the 90-year-old renowned peace activist Francis Crow. They were arrested for unlawful trespass and ordered to appear in court later this year. And the New York Times is reporting the Obama administration's opposing a measure to protect reporters from disclosing sources in cases deemed potentially harm national security. The stance was issued as lawmakers craft a new media shield law. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
And welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the